Furiosa lives with her tribe in a lush green oasis, surrounded by a vast, arid desert. One day, while out gathering fruit with her friend, she spots a group of strangers nearby. Sneaking up to their motorcycles, she disables one, but as she moves to the next, she is spotted. Quickly, she blows the tribe's warning whistle and starts running, but the strangers capture her, tie her up, and take her away. Her signal, however, reaches the tribe, and they rush to her rescue. Furiosa's mother, Mary, grabs her weapons, mounts a horse, and gives chase. She tracks the kidnappers relentlessly, eventually catching up to and killing the slowest one, taking his motorcycle to continue her pursuit. As she closes in, another bandit's motorcycle breaks down, and two others stop to check for pursuers. Meanwhile, Furiosa, still captive, secretly bites through the fuel line of a motorcycle. Her captor doesn't notice, and when they spot Mary on the horizon, they quickly ride off. Mary, now on the second abandoned bike, stays on their trail. As night falls, the kidnappers stop to inspect their bikes and argue over whether to keep the girl. One suggests leaving her behind, but another insists that bringing her to their gang will raise their status. While they debate, Furiosa manages to free her legs and runs, but they quickly recapture her. By morning, Mary finally catches up and aims her rifle at the bandits. She shoots one, but the other, having secured Furiosa to his back, rides off toward their camp. He arrives, sparking a fight among the gang members, each wanting to claim the girl. However, her captor gains their interest by claiming he has seen a land of abundance. The gang decides to present Furiosa to their leader, Dementus. Mary follows them in disguise. Along the way, Furiosa pushes her captor off his bike, preventing him from revealing the location of the oasis. When they reach the camp, Dementus tries to intimidate Furiosa, but she stays silent. He then tries trickery, having her washed, fed, and promising to send her home the next day. Meanwhile, Mary sneaks into the camp, disguised in the clothing of a bandit she killed. She finds Furiosa in a tent where a frightened servant promises to stay quiet. Mary spares her, but as soon as she and Furiosa escape, the servant raises the alarm. A chase ensues. Realizing they can't escape together, Mary orders Furiosa to ride off, giving her a peach seed and making her promise to protect the Greenlands. Furiosa hesitates, but then watches as her mother bravely fights Dementus's warriors. Though she fights fiercely, Mary is overwhelmed and captured. Crying, Furiosa watches as the gang brutally executes her mother. Dementus demands Furiosa reveal the oasis, promising freedom, but she only weeps. Enraged, he locks her in a cage, forcing her to witness his brutal gladiator games. Trying to win her over, he gives her a teddy bear, while his historian offers to teach her reading and writing. But Furiosa only plans her escape, tattooing the path to the Greenlands onto her arm. One day, Dementus and his horde search for the place of abundance, but encounter a warrior from the Citadel, who speaks of a land filled with resources. Believing this to be the place he seeks, Dementus leads his men toward the Citadel, an impregnable fortress guarded by Immortan Joe's army. Hoping to sway the people, Dementus delivers a rousing speech, but Immortan Joe instead selects a warrior to fight on his behalf. The chosen soldier says his final words, then leaps into the midst of the bikers, detonating himself and taking many with him. Despite this, Dementus refuses to retreat, and the battle begins. Immortan Joe's forces use hooked chains to capture the bikers' vehicles, lifting them into the air, including the cage containing Furiosa. The historian manages to grab hold of the cage, and Dementus himself rushes to free her before fleeing. Later, Dementus regroups and sets his sights on Gastown, one of Immortan Joe's fuel bases. He ambushes a fuel tanker, disguising his men as Citadel warriors and infiltrating the town. Just before the guards can raise the alarm, the gates open, allowing the disguised bikers inside, where they take control. Now in power, Dementus demands supplies from Immortan Joe. In response, Joe agrees to negotiations. The bikers, as a show of force, present the severed head of Gastown's former leader, threatening to impale it if their demands aren't met. Though he cannot defeat the bikers outright, Immortan Joe pretends to consider their terms. Meanwhile, he notices Furiosa among them. Sensing his interest, Dementus falsely claims the girl is his daughter. For the first time since her capture, Furiosa speaks, accusing Dementus of murdering her mother. In the end, Immortan Joe allows Dementus to rule Gastown in exchange for the girl. Furious, Dementus snatches the teddy bear from Furiosa before she is taken away. She is placed in a room among Immortan Joe's wives, where she witnesses one of them giving birth to yet another mutant child. That night, one of Joe's warriors, Rictus, notices the bells in her hair and becomes fascinated. To avoid his attention, Furiosa cuts off her hair and fashions it into a wig. Later, Rictus takes her to his quarters, discovering the star tattoo on her arm, which reveals the path to her homeland. Enchanted by the jingling bells, he reaches out to touch them, but Furiosa twists away, leaves the wig in his hands, and escapes into the night. Sometime later, Furiosa, having successfully disguised herself as a mute boy, earns a place among the Crane Operator Brigade. Her bravery and skill gain her respect, and no one suspects she is actually a girl, except for Rictus, who briefly notices something familiar about her eyes but is too preoccupied with construction. Meanwhile, work begins on a heavily armored supply truck, designed to withstand the relentless attacks of raiders in the lawless wasteland. Seeing an opportunity to escape, Furiosa hides a motorcycle and supplies beneath the truck, waiting for the right moment. During a routine supply run to the fuel farm along Fury Road, the convoy is ambushed by marauders, former allies of Dementus. As the guards engage in battle, the attackers use every trick imaginable, including parachutes, to seize control of the vehicles. Amidst the chaos, Furiosa crawls under the truck to free her hidden motorcycle, but a technician, attempting to repair a damaged hose, falls. Before he dies, he manages to pass her a spare part. Meanwhile, an enemy fighter attaches explosives to the truck's undercarriage, but Furiosa, risking her life, disables the bomb and fixes the brakes. The raiders remain relentless, and though the driver, Praetorian Jack, does everything to shake them off, most of the guards are slaughtered. Furiosa climbs onto the truck's hood, but her helmet is knocked off, revealing her true identity. Jack, shocked to see she is a girl, pulls her into the cab, and together they fight off the remaining marauders. In the end, only Jack, Furiosa, and a mutant ally remain. At Furiosa's command, the mutant releases spiked traps, destroying a flying enemy vehicle, but sacrificing himself in the process. Back in the cab, Furiosa attempts to kill Jack, but he overpowers her and throws her from the truck, leaving her stranded on the road. However, he soon returns, impressed by her courage, and offers her a place in his convoy. Over time, Furiosa earns Jack's trust, eventually becoming his deputy and receiving the title of Praetorian. Meanwhile, Dementus, unable to govern effectively, drives Gastown into ruin, sparking unrest among its workers. Sensing the perfect opportunity, Jack suggests that he and Furiosa flee together, providing her with the necessary resources to start over. However, during one final supply run, they return to find Gastown in chaos, with Dementus desperately trying to maintain control. Realizing his grip is slipping, Dementus calls a council at the Citadel and orders the supply trucks to leave behind their cargo as a peace offering. When Immortan Joe learns of this, he is enraged and orders Furiosa and Jack to lead a mission to collect weapons and ammunition from Leadtown. That evening, Jack confesses that he wants to help Furiosa because he still remembers his own parents. In response, she reveals the star map tattooed on her arm and proposes that they escape together. During their final journey, Jack secretly instructs his crew to load the tanker with supplies while Furiosa drives the escort vehicle. However, upon arriving in Leadtown, they are ambushed. Jack signals for Furiosa to escape while he distracts the enemy, but driven by revenge, she takes up a sniper rifle and fires at Dementus. Spotting her, the warlord retaliates with a grenade launcher, causing an explosion. Believing Furiosa is dead, Jack destroys the tower where Dementus is hiding. Hanging on for dear life, Dementus watches in shock as Furiosa, still alive, rescues Jack from the abyss where the truck had fallen and helps him onto a motorcycle. The two flee, but Dementus survives and gives chase. As they ride, Furiosa reveals the route to the place of abundance. However, Dementus men catch up, forcing them off the road. Jack fights back, trying to hold them off, but they are overwhelmed. Dementus, furious, orders their execution, demanding that Jack be killed first. Chained and forced to watch, Furiosa witnesses her friend being brutally tormented. As night falls, Dementus suddenly notices a severed hand hanging from a chain. It bears the star map. Furiosa has cut off her own arm to escape. Now free, she steals a motorcycle and rides away. With her last strength, she reaches the Citadel, where she is taken before Immortan Joe. There, she recounts everything that has happened and helps plan a war against Dementus. Using deception, they trick Dementus into believing that Immortan Joe's forces have left the Citadel to defend Gastown. Falling for the bait, Dementus and his horde rush to attack, only to be ambushed. Most of his men perish. Meanwhile, having lost her home forever, Furiosa shaves her head, replaces her lost hand with a mechanical prosthesis, and prepares for battle. Seizing a heavily armored vehicle meant for hunting down Dementus, she sets off alone. Out in the desert, Dementus and his last remaining followers attempt to flee. To shake off their pursuer, he orders his men to scatter, but Furiosa relentlessly tracks them down, killing them one by one. After a long, grueling chase, she finally catches up to Dementus. Exhausted, he collapses before her, mocking her with the idea that revenge will not bring her peace. Furiosa chains him up, reminding him of her murdered mother, but he unexpectedly confesses that he became the man he is after losing his own wife and children. He tells her that no amount of his suffering will bring back the dead, and that he has a high pain threshold. Enraged, Furiosa beats him but soon realizes the truth in his words. Vengeance does not ease the pain of loss. As Dementus loses consciousness, she picks up his old teddy bear. Recognizing her at last, he suggests they join forces to rule the wasteland together, but she throws the toy away in disgust. A voiceover narrates that Furiosa ultimately imprisons Dementus at the Citadel, using his living body as fertilizer to grow a peach tree from her mother's seeds. Later, she takes command of a new war rig, secretly smuggling 5 of Immortan Joe's wives who wish to escape his rule.